Alrighty, we might start since it's 9 o'clock. So welcome everyone. How's everyone doing this morning? Pretty good? Yeah. It's 9 o'clock. I did say a Friday morning before because it does feel like Friday, like second day of a conference or the last day of a conference. Usually feels like a Friday, but that's okay. It is still Thursday. We've got one more day of the week left. So thank you all for coming to this session. We'll be talking today about skills that we all need to ensure that we can work well with all these fantastic, shiny new toys that we all have available to us. So today we're going to go through how to use them, and hopefully I'll give you lots of tips and tricks to take away back to your workplaces, even back to your daily lives as well. But before I get into that, a little bit about me. So I started an AI company back in 2016 when it wasn't the cool and done thing to do. And I've been working in technology for the past decade. I've been a developer advocate, doing lots of events. I've worked at GitHub. If you are following along the talk and you'd like to tweet, still going to call it Twitter. So if you'd like to send anything on socials, put it on Instagram, there's a link there as well if you want to find me on Blue Sky and things as well. So feel free to share anything from this talk today. We're going to cover a few different things. So first of all, I'm going to set the scene by covering the Industrial Revolutions, because I think it's quite important to understand where we're currently sitting within this historical context and how a lot of the things we're experiencing now is actually nothing new. Then we're going to talk about artificial intelligence and some of its applications, and I'll get a little bit of interaction from the audience too, if it's not too early for everyone in the morning. And we'll talk about some of the fears and concerns as well. So some of you might have come into the talk today going, oh, this is really exciting. We're going to learn a lot about these new tools that are available to me. And some of you might be also sitting there thinking, I'm actually a little bit worried about some of these tools and what it might mean for my job and things like that. So we're going to cover all that today. We'll also talk about working with AI and how I think it's really important for us to work with the tools that we have available to us. And I'll talk about some of those skills that I think that we should have to work well with those tools. And then finally, I'll give you some tips and tricks on how to practice some of the things that we talk about. And if there's a little bit of time at the end, I might even give you some tips and tricks on building out some of those more soft skills that I think is really important for us as well. So to start off, I want to set this scene of this whole idea of work. Because when people say there's this new tool, there's this new thing that's come out, and it's going to change the way you work. And in some cases, people might be thinking, well, it's actually going to replace my job. Now, why are people worried when somebody comes along and says, I'm going to replace your job? Because if I said to you all in the room right now, you don't have to go to work tomorrow. In fact, you never have to work again in your life. What's your first thought? Some of you might be thinking, yay, woohoo, I don't have to work again. And then other people might be thinking, well, hang on, what does that mean for what I do day to day? And I think this is what's really important, is understanding what work is. So work is this idea that we do something to accomplish a task, to complete something, to produce a desired result or effect. So when we talk about work in the very, very original sense, and this is a painting, it's not AI generated image, so it says it up there, it's a painting. But back in the day, we needed to work to ensure that we got what we needed to survive. We tended the land, we made cotton, we spun our own clothing, we made our own food. We needed to work to survive. But this has changed throughout the different industrial revolutions, right? So the first industrial revolution that we have is, now these are rough dates based on a whole different bunch of historical documentation, but the rough first industrial revolution, right? The advent of the steam engine. And this changed a lot of things. This is when we now have machinery coming into the industry. So things that people had initially done by hand, whether it was spinning cotton or milling grain, now all of a sudden we have all these machines that can come in and do the work for us. So jobs changed there. Then we had electricity. Things changed even more dramatically towards the end of the 19th century. massive technological advances came in with this idea of new energy. So we didn't just have electricity, we also had oil and gas. This is when we had the creation of the internal combustion engine. So all those machinery that we just put in the first industrial revolution is now all of a sudden much more efficient. And we also have a lot of demand for different resources. This is when we have steel is really important and really coveted. And then we come to the next industrial revolution. So this one was kind of towards the end of the First World War. Then we have the next industrial revolution in the 1970s. And this is when we have the emergence of nuclear power and the rise of electronics. So this is kind of signaling telecommunications. Previously, before this revolution, all our communication was done via post or by signaling. So now all of a sudden we have these computers to help us do things. And this is, if anyone was in Richard's space talk yesterday, this is when space travel becomes a big thing, because we're now able to have electricity to produce a lot of these things. And a lot of people will call this the digital revolution. We're now starting to bring the digital technology into what we do. Now, a lot of people argue that this revolution is still happening, which is why there's a dash at the end of the 1970s there. But I would actually argue that we're in what's called the fourth industrial revolution, because there's a very distinct difference between the rise of computers and the introduction of computers versus this new age of the internet. Now, for those of you who know anything about the history of the internet, it wasn't in the early 2000s that the internet was produced or realised, but it was in the early 2000s that pretty much everyone had access to it, right? Now everyone's got MySpace pages, and any business that you have is now immediately accessible from a computer that was put in the previous revolution. And this revolution is also signalling and inviting very, very different technological changes. So we have things like the metaverse and VR and AR. And yes, now we have this whole rise of artificial intelligence. Now, throughout every industrial revolution, people have had the same or similar questions to what we're asking now when we're talking about AI coming into play. How is these technologies changing my job? Will I still have a job? And what will that job look like? And the reasons people are having those questions is because it comes back to this idea of not just what is work, which is the idea of producing a desired outcome or effect, but why do I work as a person? So when I said to you all at the start, you don't have to work anymore ever, and some of you are like, yee, and some of you are like, these are the reasons why. We need to work to get money. Back in the day, we didn't have to worry about this. Anything that we wanted ourselves, we just made, right? But now that we've got everyone in there, for lack of a better word, silos, you produce this thing and you produce that thing. Now we need a way to transact what we're actually producing. And our society has created currency or money in order for us to buy and purchase the things we need. Social and teamwork. Who likes going to work because it's a bit of a social thing, right? Yeah, it's exciting working with people and getting to know people. Half my friends now are people I know from work, right? Habit. You talk to people who are nearing retirement age, and a lot of them don't want to retire because they're like, well, what else am I going to do? It's become a habit now. This 9 to 5, or even if you're not 9 to 5, this idea of getting up, getting out of bed, and working towards a desired result or effect is kind of a bit of habit. Creativity and learning. You're all here today. Hopefully your work has sent you along, or you've come along to be creative and learn things. In our jobs, we have a lot of opportunities to be creative and to learn, particularly in the technology industry. We are often pushing boundaries, and that's quite exciting for a lot of people. And also for this idea of stability and independence. If I'm working, not only do I have a structure to my day and a structure to what I do, but I have independence. I'm not reliant on the government paying me. I'm not reliant on somebody else providing my needs. I'm independent. And this idea of fulfillment and purpose, and I think this one's really important. People think, and again, talk to people nearing retirement age, they don't want to stop work because they're like, well, what else is my purpose in life? If I'm working and if work is to produce a desired result or effect, I'm contributing to society, what do I do now if I'm no longer working? So now if we look at this list, there's probably a lot of things on here we could fix or change. Money, people have talked about universal basic income, government grants, things like that. We can get social and teamwork outside of work. We can break habits. They're hard to break, but we can break habits. We can get creativity and learning outside our jobs through the different events and things we can do. Stability and independence, a little bit harder to find outside of work, or some people find it harder to find outside of work, but the idea of fulfillment and purpose can be quite difficult to replace, right? Now, I have said that these concepts and these ideas it's not nothing new, right? We've seen this throughout all the different revolutions. And our jobs have always changed, right? So we went from when the first industrial revolution, where we put all these machines in and all of a sudden people are able to use all these machines, their jobs changed. And then we changed them again by like adding more machines in. But if we look at the image, there's still people in the factory. Just the work they're doing is different. So there's a guy at the back there, he might be fixing a machine. There's a guy on his phone, he might be a manager or a logistics person. The jobs that we do have changed. Let's have a look at this one. Has anyone been to a library recently? A few people. Often we went to a library to browse books and look for information. Now we often go to a library and we're on a computer. We're still browsing information. The mechanism of how we do that has changed. So the idea and a purpose of a library, I would argue, has shifted. It's become a place to go and quiet place to work. Another one, going and talking to someone in person. Now we have replaced that with chatbots. How often do you call up a customer service centre and dial 1 for this and dial 2? Hi, I'm Cody, your virtual assistant. Please tell me in a few words what you're calling about today. So we're even changing the way that we interact with people and interact with companies. And then everything changed in a big way because along came this thing called artificial intelligence. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the parallels between what we've experienced in the industrial revolutions and how it is a little bit different today. So this thing called artificial intelligence came along and people think this is like this shiny, big, new technology and it's all out there and, it's Jarvis from Marvel if you haven't seen Marvel, but it's this big new thing. But what people don't realise is it's actually not new. So this guy, anyone know Benedict Cumberbatch? No, not Benedict Cumberbatch, but Alan Turing. Benedict Cumberbatch plays Alan Turing in The Imitation Game. It was in the 1950s that he first proposed the paper that gave the idea of the imitation game, which was a way to test the intelligence of machines. So that was in the 1950s. And it was in 1955 that American scientists first coined the term artificial intelligence at a technical conference. So it's been around for quite some time, but we fast forward today and it literally feels like it's everywhere and it's just all big and shiny. And the reason for that is because we now have this thing called generative AI. So before this whole new like chat GPTs and things came along, we had just generalized AI, which is what my company was doing. And generalized AI is very deterministic. You give it something and you get a result. So if we think about AI in self-driving cars, is it veering too close to the white line? Send it back to the middle, right? If we're using a generalized AI for data, or if just talking about deterministic technology, if I flick a switch, it either goes on or off. If I do something, there's a very determined outcome for what we get. Generative AI changes the game completely. So it's non-deterministic. It's probabilistic. So based on what you ask it and the response it gives you, you get what the AI thinks is the next most probable piece of information, which is why it's changed the game so dramatically. But let's have a look at what the actual definition of AI is. A lot of people are like, oh, it's just ChatGPT. Well, it's not just ChatGPT. So artificial intelligence, again, thinking back to Alan Turing's idea of testing intelligence, but it's an intelligent system that leverages computers and machines to mimic the problem-solving, decision-making capabilities of the human mind. Hang on. The problem-solving and decision-making capabilities of the human mind. That is what people are worried about. The things that we have traditionally done as humans and the types of thought processes that have, for lack of a better word, have always traditionally been seen as that is human, is now coming into the realm of AI. It is kind of taking over, right? So a better way to think about it, or way I like to think of it, it isn't just designed to mimic the capabilities of humans, but in many cases it's designed to do our jobs better than we can. And again, that's why people are worried. So those things of like, you know, a machine will never be able to come in and reason the way we do. A machine will never be able to come in and create something like artwork or prose, right? And now we're seeing that that is actually the case. And people are worried, rightly so. So here's a list of concerns and fears that I've kind of combined or collaborated on based on various different research. But I want to acknowledge that these things are here. And the first one is this whole idea of job loss and displacement. Now, I've talked about this has always happened, right? This idea of job loss and displacement is nothing new. But why it's so worrying now for a lot of people is the speed at which it's happening. People are worried that because it's happening so quickly that there'll be a lack of new opportunities, so new jobs won't be created quick enough from the old jobs leaving, and that it's happening so quickly that how do we upskill in time to be able to take the jobs that are actually being developed? Because if we think back to the industrial revolutions, they take years, decades in some cases, to implement technology and to bring in these new machines. And then along the way, we're finding all these new jobs, such as being able to fix the machine, or being able to do supply chain, logistics, all these new kinds of jobs, right? So lack of opportunities there. This idea of loss of human connection. Again, thinking back to the virtual chatbots, how many times do you ring up and you're like, I'm going to get a human who's going to understand my situation, be empathetic to what I think. And then you're like, hello, this is Cody, your assistant. And you're like, great. So this idea of human connection being lost. And then it plays into this idea of ethics and fairness as well. How have these AIs been trained? What data have they been trained on? And what biases do these AIs have? So if I ask a recruitment bot to give me some good outlines of how I would get a new job in technology, they would be like, well, you're a woman and there's not many women in technology, so maybe you should look elsewhere, right? That has happened. And one of my friends, he's Persian. He's like, I cannot get any of the image generators to produce an image of a Persian guy without a beard. And it's because that's the way it's been trained, right? So there's this ethics and bias. But where's this all heading? We're kind of in this like limbo moment at the moment. So I want to use I love movies. So warning, spoilers alert coming up. I want to use some movies to kind of set what I think is a few probable futures for how this is going to work. So who's seen WALL-E? Or rather, who hasn't? I'm going to spoil it right now for you. So there's an evil robot in WALL-E. Basically, what happens is all the humans get on a ship, they go into the Earth so that the robots can clean up the Earth while they're away. And they're only supposed to be away for like 5 years, and 5 years turns into 500 years, and it turns out the robots are actively trying to keep us away from the planet Earth because they want to take it over. So in this situation, in WALL-E, the robots aren't kind of trying to kill us or get rid of us. They're just kind of trying to control us. A little bit pessimistic kind of future, right? And then you have the doom and gloom, the future where the robots do come smart enough and go, well, the humans are actually destroying everything, so we're going to get rid of them, right? Terminator 1, 2, 3, I don't know how many of them are these days, but there's lots of them out there. Blade Runner, so Harrison Ford isn't a robot, but in Blade Runner, there are lots of robots that are humanoid. So they look and act and think like humans. So this starts begging the question of what does it actually mean to be human? We're starting to ask a lot of these questions now. There's cases of people marrying robots and things like that. So this starts begging the question, what does it mean to be human? What's our humanity? But I think Star Wars is closest to what I think the future is going to be, what it currently is looking like, and what it should be. So in Star Wars, no robots are actually good or evil, right? They're only on the side of the Galactic Empire or the Rebellion based on who programmed them. In most cases, the robots are just helpful pair robots. They help out whoever's side they're on because they just happen to be there. And I think that's what we're going to be like. And we're already seeing stuff like that now. So this is a restaurant in China. This was at the end of last year this video was released. No people work in this restaurant. It's just robots that cook all the food and deliver all the food. And you can go to this restaurant in China and have the robots serve you everything. So we are seeing this. We are seeing robots be helpful to us, right? But we came here to talk about AI developer tooling and the types of AIs that are out there for developers. So I'm just going to whip through a couple real quick. First one is GitHub CoPilot, or like AI pair programming. So who's used like GitHub CoPilot or some sort of AI pair programmer? There's lots out there. There's Amazon Q Developer, there's Cursor, there's Ada, there's heaps of different ones, right? But this is where, you need very little coding experience now, or very little technical knowledge. And you can write a prompt and get GitHub CoPilot to go and generate all the code for you. Like I just wrote a prompt and code there. You've probably heard of people vibe coding. That's literally just putting prompts in and just accepting them willy-nilly and seeing what happens. Great if you're just vibe coding and just having fun for the day, but if you're actually working on real things, it's a bit different. But like we can go into GitHub CoPilot now and I don't need to go and pay for a developer anymore to build me a website. Or as a developer, I don't need to do all the groundwork of tag, HTML, body. Like we can get a lot of the repetitive code, right? And we can even put vague things like, style this page a little bit nicer. Like, kind of vague responses, right? And GitHub CoPilot can come in and help us. And now we're seeing things like agent mode. Has anyone tried agent mode yet in GitHub? Okay, this one's going to be fun for you. So this is that same code that I had of just like creating a really basic portfolio website. And we've got 3 different modes we can go into GitHub CoPilot now. And these are all available to everyone. So there's ask, edit, and agent mode. So ask is ask GitHub CoPilot to provide you with code snippets, which is probably what you've been using. You can also ask it technical questions like, I don't know, I got a 504 error. What does that mean? You can ask questions. Edit means it'll go through and edit your code. So rather than providing suggestions, it will just literally edit your code for you. And then agent mode, it has full access to your coding capabilities. So it can now not only just edit your code, but it can go through and run terminal commands and things like that. So this is that same portfolio website that I had up here. And so if I go and open the chat button, bar and pick agent mode, I can now write a pretty descriptive prompt, if I might say so myself. Can you please help me make this website even better? I can't see the connect me at the bottom of the page. Let's add some images from this place, some testimonials. Can we please ensure that we might have some tests running? Can you make sure you build this? And maybe even add some like blue sky social media, right? So it's going through there, and that's a real-time run there. And we can click to run the commands if we want. We are given the option of like keeping the code that we're given or not, and like it's just made it all a little bit nicer there. Like it's added some cool links and stuff, and I didn't even tell it what to click there, but it's just kind of gone in and added some things to me. So we can see that these things here are actually starting to become a bit more reality, okay? Like, is my job actually in Strife as a developer? And then we start seeing things like this pop up all over the news, and we're like, ooh, okay. Yeah, these are big people, and if they're saying it, okay, it must be true. So we're going, okay, well, it's the end of software engineering. Okay, what does this all look like, right? So we need to acknowledge that those concerns that you might be having in the room, or that your friends or your colleagues or your co-workers might be having, valid. So don't feel like, oh, everyone else is like on this AI hype train and I'm here going, but what about the people? Acknowledge that that's valid. Right, but how do we go in and address some of these concerns? So how do we go and address the concern of, upskilling and making sure that we're the ones that know what we're talking about, making sure that we're using that human connection, making sure that we're thinking about ethics and bias and fairness and all those kind of things? How do we do that? Well, the first thing we can do is look at the qualities. We can call these soft skills as well, but look at the qualities that are important to people and the qualities that I think we do well as people versus AI. So if we look back and think about AI again, AI can do a lot of things better than we can, right? It can trawl data, it can find patterns in data. I don't know about you, but I need sleep, whereas AI is just available 24/7. I can't just go call my coworker at 3 a.m. if I'm stuck on some code, but I can ask GitHub CoPilot. It's just always there, right? But these are the things that I think are really important as people to have. And these are I put these together as well, again, based on research, but this is what I've found is really important. So first thing is persuasion, negotiation. Really, really important quality. Just because we can do something and we can use something doesn't mean we should. So having really good persuasion, negotiation skills can help you persuade your company to either use AI or not use AI. And I'm not saying just blanket use it or not use it. I say using it in certain situations. Right, so having this skill is really important. Decision-making and ethics. Again, what AIs do we use for what things? What AIs have been trained on what data? Particularly if we're looking at AI like models, like LLMs, large language models, how have those been trained? Or if we're training our own AIs, a lot of people are building chatbots and things, if we're training our own AIs, how are we thinking about the data that we are using? Is that data set diverse? Does it represent our customers? Thinking about those sort of things. Adaptability, this is a big one. Can we adapt? And how quickly can we adapt? Not just to a changing landscape, because the whole industry is changing, but to changing everything. Like agent mode is relatively new. We saw overnight that the world got caught up on Studio Ghibli images because of a new update to like ChatGPT, right? Things are changing so quickly, so how quickly can we adapt? Do we have empathy and emotional intelligence? This is a big one. Again, having this idea of empathy to understand the situations that people are in. Now, people say like, oh, AI could have empathy. Well, it kind of could. We can train it to do that. But it doesn't have real empathy. It might have a bit of sympathy based on how we trained it. But empathy is something that you've experienced yourself, and therefore you can be empathetic to someone else's situation because you've experienced the same situation or a similar situation that you're in. By definition, AI can't be empathetic because how can AI experience a situation that we've been in? Now we could say, well, we've trained it on the data, but is that really experiencing something? Collaboration, again, really important. How well can we work with other teams within the organisation, the company, outside our organisation? This also extends to AI. How well can we collaborate with AI? So really important skill. Our ability to learn. Do we pick things up quickly? Are we teachable? Are we learnable? Are we being curious? Now, I'm kind of preaching to the converted here because by being here, you all have that right now because you've decided to take a day, whether it was take a day off work or take a day off something else, to be here and learn. So you're already doing this. And our creativity and innovation. Now, I don't really care too much what other people say, but AI can't inherently be creative. It can create things, but it can't be inherently creative or particularly innovative, because innovative is something completely new. So someone asked me, could an AI write a PhD? And I was like, well, kind of. You could kind of make it up. but it can't inherently write a PhD because PhD is new knowledge. AI can't create something out of nothing. We have to train an AI. We have to train it on data. And this is becoming a little bit blurry to understand now because now we've got these like multi-purpose AIs like ChatGPT who can write prose and produce images and do graphs and do a lot more things than what it could originally do. But at the end of the day, an AI can still only do what an AI has been trained to do. And it can only use the data sets it's been trained on. Or, if it's searching the internet. But again, that's information that's out there. It can't inherently go and create new knowledge, right? So I think this creativity and innovation part is very important for us as people. And I think a lot of these important qualities really come down to this idea of resilience because I don't think AI is going anywhere. Some people will tell you, it might just implode or all the GPUs might just melt away. Like Sam Altman said, like when they released the GPT 4.0, oh my gosh, all our GPUs are melting. I'm sorry, but what did you think was going to happen when everyone realized they could create Studio Ghibli images? So some people will tell you that we are kind of at our limit, which we sort of are. Like we still need to figure out how we're going to support all this resourcing. But I don't think it's going anywhere. And so we need to learn how to adapt to that. And this is a quote from me, although apparently the CEO of NVIDIA said it as well, but I've been saying this for years, and previously before AI, it was something else. So replace AI there is like, the tool isn't going to take away your job, but people using the tools could take your job because the productivity gains, in this case particularly, are so undeniable. So again, nothing actually new. New machine comes into place. Okay, your job is being taken, but person who can use machine probably still going to keep job. Computers come in, not going to replace accountants like they thought they would, but accountants using computers are going to replace accountants not using computers, right? So let's actually have a look at putting a lot of these things into practice. So this is a website that I built called Mish Friendly Food. I have lots of dietaries. I love to eat. I also love to travel, and it can be quite difficult when you're traveling to explain to someone what gluten is if they don't know what it is and there's no real translation for it. To the point where someone said, I have a banana. Would you like a banana? Do they have gluten in them? And I was like, okay. So we built this as part of our Hacktoberfest project, and what I wanted to do is just kind of a little simple change. I wanted to make that from bar, so it's got translation, so you basically just go from this language to this language, put in what you want to translate and hit the translate button. So what I wanted to do was change that to be the default language of whatever the browser is. So that was something that I wanted to do, and I was like, okay, well, I could probably figure that out, and this is just it working. I was like, I could probably figure that out myself, but I have AI. Let's use some GitHub CoPilot. That's actually my short list of dietary requirements, so that's a bit fun. And I wanted to go to Japan, so I translated that. But how do we actually get that to work? So this is the code, running VS Code, and I've put it in light mode because it's so much easier to see in projectors light mode. So I created a new branch, and I said at workspace, so this was using what we would now know as the GitHub CoPilot ask. I'd like to have the language shown in the from selection, default to the language the user has set in the browser. Can you please make this change? So I'm being very specific about what I want. I'm even using the words that are on the website or that are in the code so that GitHub CoPilot can find them. I'm being quite specific about what I want. And at workspace means look at the entire workspace. So we can see there it's like generating, it's used all the references, it's collected the information, because I at least think, well, I know because I've kind of built this, that it's going to require more than one change in one file, or it's going to be, multiple files are going to need to be changed here. So what I'm doing is I'm going through and I'm checking what GitHub CoPilot is giving me. I'm not vibe coding this. I'm not just going, woohoo, except checking the responses that AI is giving us is really important. So I'm going through and I'm checking those responses, and if it's good, which I think it is in this case, I'm like adding it into the code, right? So I'm adding it into my browser. And now I can see that, okay, that's looking all right. And now I actually want to make sure that this works for my tests because I've got a bunch of tests running. And GitHub CoPilot came up with a little, would you like to create a test for this? You just click the button. It's kind of nice. It gives you like some suggested questions to ask next. And it's kind of giving me, oh yeah, we can go and do this and we can use Jest for this. And I was like, but I don't know why it didn't pick this up, but I was like, but I'm using Playwright. So let's use Playwright for testing. So we can not just blindly accept what an AI is telling us, right? Is we need to be critical thinkers and we need to use our decision making to decide whether we should be using something or not. It's like, sure, I can use Playwright for testing because I can fix that up. And here's a test. So we can go and add that test and we can go and put it into either an existing one or I created a new one here because it was like kind of a different test I had and added the code in there because I had a look at it. It looked all pretty good. And then we can go and see, okay, well, the website works, but the test failed. So what actually happened in that situation? But that's okay. We got it working. And now we can see that the default language is English because I'm using a browser for English. So that looks all great and fun and awesome. Now, let's go and see what those changes could potentially look like in something like agent mode. So now I'm using agent mode. So I've gone in and I've selected this brand new agent mode, which you all have access to, by the way. Everyone can use agent mode. And I'm creating quite a lengthy prompt. So I'm saying once the translation has been complete, so new thing now that I want to do, I want it to provide the option to export whatever the translation is onto a little card, right? So that there's a little export button so that you can save it as an image on your phone or print it out on a business card and show it to someone. So I'm being quite specific about what I want here. I said there should be 4 styles. These are the 4 styles I want. I want a cute card, I want an anime card, I want a modern card, I want a corporate card. So by telling an AI exactly what I want, I'm probably going to get closer to what I think is actually the code I want, as opposed to being vague. Like if I said to you, like, oh, build me a website, and you're like, okay, website. And it's like, that's not what I wanted. I was like, well, you didn't tell me what you wanted, so I just built whatever I wanted. So if we don't tell an AI what we want, it's just going to give us whatever it thinks, right? So being specific is very important. So we're going through, so I'm also asking it to update tests because I've, again, got tests in this project and I'm creating a new feature, a new functionality. So I want to make sure there's tests for that functionality. So GitHub Code, and this one is actually real time. I didn't speed up this one. So this is it happening in real time. And what I really like about agent mode, it's like, I'm going to do this for you, and I'm going to do that. I will update this, and I will update that. And we can see on the side here, the code is actually updating, but it tells you what it's going to do before it's doing it, or before it's kind of done it. And that gives us a really good indication of, were my instructions clear enough that the AI is understanding what I'm asking? It's called like reciprocal communication. So again, if I say to, can you please build me a website? I want it to be a 1-page portfolio website. I want to include this, this, and this. Is that okay? You might say back to me, yes, it is, just clarifying that you want this, and deliverables are this, right? In the same way that we would talk through what we want with a human, we need to double check what we're doing with AI as well. So kind of treat it like a human, right? So it's saying, okay, now I've made all these changes and there's now functionality here. There's a corresponding test. And I like it how it says, let me know if you need further assistance or additional features. I'm like, oh, thank you. So thank you, AI. And we can now go and see that it's even asking us to run it. So now I'm saying, can you run this? And I was like, cool, here's the command. Would you like to just execute that? And you're like, cool, yes, please. And it's saying, okay, well, it is actually already installed, so we really didn't. So it's got a little tick next to the install button there. And then I'm saying, well, why are these things not working? And it's like, well, the following dependencies are imported but not resolved. So I said, are they even installed? And it's like, well, they're not. I'm like, well, can you install them? And it's like, yeah, yeah, I can. So this is fixing it now, and it's installing things. And so again, this is agent mode, right? It's going through everything for us. It's making the changes, and we say, oh, we've got a little card there now. That was like version number 1. I was like, okay, that's a bit interesting, but it's working, right? We're working with it. So and then I'm saying, well, let's now make sure that all the tests are actually running and passing. So can you go and run these tests? It's like, cool, yeah, NPM tests, like, let's go. And it's like, oh, there's errors everywhere, and there's all the tests are all breaking. I'm like, these tests worked before you touched the code. What have you done? But that's okay, because what I saw this and I was like, this was the first time I was using agent mode for the first time. I was like, I'm gonna have to go and backspace everything that GitHub CoPilot's done now and go and find out what it's actually doing. But to my surprise, GitHub CoPilot was like, these tests seem to have failed because the application was not running. Let me fix that for you. I can run this. And I was like, oh, cool. It's even now not just running the tests, it's looking at why the tests are failing and going, oh, I can actually fix that for you. Now it's like, running them again. And oh, look, there's a couple that didn't work, but half of them are working. And even before I tried to do anything, it's like, oh, most of them are working, but 3 aren't. Let me fix that for you. And I was like, okay, cool. Now, this kind of is starting to beg the question a little bit of like, are we just, is this our job now, just pressing the button to run and start? But I think it really just kind of gives us an idea of the capabilities of AI and how we could potentially work with it, right? So yeah, I'm pressing the buttons to continue and doing things, but we really need to be checking what AI is giving us as well. So while we're going through all these things, we just need to think, okay, is this what I want? How is this working? And is this actually effective for the outcome that I'm trying to do? And I like that again. It's like, okay, well now they're mostly failing or mostly passing, but I'll fix one more. Let me do this. And again, it's telling me what it's doing. So if I want to go back and check, this chat history is all there, so I can go and actually check that too and go, okay, are you breaking anything else? Kind of like a junior developer, right? If we're like over their shoulder going, yeah, that looks good. No, go back there. No, that looks good too. We need to be checking. We can't just let it go. Actually, I called up a friend and he was like, yeah, I can talk to you for about an hour. I'm like, don't you need to work? He's like, agent mode's working for me. And I was like, wait, what? You're just like letting, he's like, oh yeah, I'm just clicking the buttons. I'm just doing some vibe coding. Again, that's kind of okay for personal projects, but probably don't do that for your work. Like, you want to be checking what you're actually getting, right? Okay. Now, amongst all that, you might be going, oh, okay, the capabilities of AI is really, really, it's growing, right? And these are some stats of people just like using, this was GitHub CoPilot chat. Again, sources from GitHub, so take it with a grain of salt. But this is well before like agent mode and other modes. And essentially what I want to communicate here is that the productivity is there. The productivity gains are absolutely there when using AI. It's almost undeniable at this point. We can see Westpac's getting some productivity gains from using AI coding. That was GitHub CoPilot as well. And we're now seeing again, other companies, Accenture and things like that. And to the point where one of my friends who runs a startup, he laid off a developer because they weren't using AI well enough. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, all my other developers were using AI and they were doing tasks that used to take like a week. They were doing them in like a couple of hours. But this other developer, I was giving him all the tools and all the resources to go forth and learn how to use it, but he just wasn't picking it up. And he's like, as a startup, I can't afford that. I can't afford the productivity loss. So he laid off that guy and looked to hire another developer who was already using AI, or at least was teachable, right? The productivity gains are absolutely there. But when it comes down to it, has anyone seen this stat? This is from the Global Time Code Report. It is a little bit kind of inflated. I'm like, okay, 52 minutes a day for a developer spent actually coding, like in VS Code or IntelliJ or JetBrains, whatever, which one you use, but only 52 minutes a day. And I was like, 4 hours a week. That's really not much time spent coding. So if AI is going to give us all this productivity, it's going to increase your productivity when you're coding by 80%, But if it's only less than an hour a day that you're getting an 80% productivity gain for, what are you doing for the other 7 hours a day? Are you just unproductive because you don't have AI because it's not helping you coding? So if we look at this one, it's just like, well, again, okay, let's make this like, let's go down to like even the 90th percentile, like 2 hours a day. Is AI really going to help us be that productive? Let's say 2 to 4 hours a day, right? Let's be a little bit conservative. If we're using AI and it's able to help us be productive in half of our day, is that good enough? What about the other half of the day? So developers don't just spend time coding. So according to that graph, they're saying developers are only spending about 25% of the day coding. What are they doing for the other times when they're not in the editor? Well, they're doing stand-ups and they're doing sprint reviews and bug reports and planning and code and collaboration and meetings and documentation and communicating. Okay, there's all these things, right? So are there AI tools out there that developers can use for these other parts of the day? Like GitHub CoPilot is great, don't get me wrong, but it's probably not going to help me prepare for my stand-up or sprint review. It's going to be like, sorry, I can only help with coding questions, right? So are there things out there? Yes, there are. Okay, let's have a look at code review for the first one. Again, GitHub CoPilot. So this is back in we are in the editor right now, but once I've done something and I've created a pull request, we can now get GitHub CoPilot to write us a pull request summary. How many of us review pull requests without summaries in them? Without any explanations or descriptions? And you're like, oh, I've got to go look through the code. I've got to see what files are changed. GitHub CoPilot can do it all now for me. So woohoo, I don't have to spend time writing a pull request summary anymore. AI can do this, and that's in the GitHub CoPilot like on .com, right? So out of the editor, but it's there, looks great. We can also get GitHub CoPilot to help us with actually doing code review. So here's another one, that was those export buttons. I made it a bit fancier, a bit nicer, and I've got a pull request open to add those buttons to my website now. And I can open up the pull request and ask GitHub CoPilot on the side over there to actually be a reviewer. So request GitHub CoPilot to review my code. Now, people might be going, well, hang on, what about we're literally replacing developers here? But what about when we're working on our own and we're maintaining our own projects? Or we just can't get a hold of people? Like, we can have multiple reviewers, right? It doesn't mean GitHub CoPilot reviews it and then nothing else. But maybe if we add GitHub CoPilot to our workflow and get it to review it first, it can pick up any major flaws, right? And then a human can come in and review it. So if GitHub CoPilot picked up major flaws, I could go and change this instead of wasting another developer's time who comes along and picks up the big flaws for me. All right, what else can we help with? Let's help with planning. Has anyone used V0 for planning V0, 5SL? Great AI. So we can use this for planning and mocking up and prototyping websites or components or features or kind of anything. So anything kind of visual V0 can do. So I can say, here's my current website, this one. I'd like to add a login page so that people can save their translations and just access them whenever they like. And it goes, cool, let me think about this. And this is great too. You can upload something from Figma and go, here's a mock-up I created in Figma. Can you make this like clickable and interactable just so I can show like an investor or whoever? And it's like, okay, let's create them. I just said, I was trying to connect to Supabase and do all the back end. I'm like, no, I just, at this point in time, I just need a mock-up. So I was like, yeah, just create the mock-up. And it's like, cool. Again, tells me the steps of what it's going to do, writes the code for me. And again, that's just, I've sped that up a little bit because we'd be sitting here waiting for a little while otherwise. But we're just seeing that, okay, it's creating all the things. It's created a login page. It's created like a app for like forgot password, what happens with it, and boom, there it is, little login page. So it's interactable. It's not completely, like if I click on Google and Facebook, it hasn't got the back-end integration there. But it looks all right, and it's clickable, and it looks fun. So now all of a sudden, if you're at a hackathon or you've created a new project or feature, you can go and present this to somebody without having to go to designers and mock it all up and make it a bit fancy. Like this just helps with that now. So we can just move the project along much faster. Next one, we can help with bug reports. Who likes doing bug reports here? Anyone? You like doing bug reports? Couple of people. There's this great thing called Jam. Does anyone use Jam? Lots of developers around the world are using this, including like Disney and Dell. But this is a great thing. And what I like about it is it's just directly into your browser. You can like set it up elsewhere as well. But what I like about this is it's just boom in your browser. You don't have to, no setup. And when you're ready, you can just go to any kind of website. So this is another website of mine, my portfolio website. It looks all fine, but it doesn't look great in one mode. So if I go, okay, let's just record a bug here. So I'm gonna go and record a little video, and I'm talking. I've got my microphone on. I'm talking. I'm like, this is my website. It looks fine in this mode. However, okay, there's a few errors there. Let's fix that. But when we go to mobile, I've got this ugly white line down the side, right? And that doesn't look great. So that's a bug. And I can kind of talk that out and explain that while showing it on screen. And when I'm ready, I can finish and stop the recording. Now I've kind of like pointed out a couple of the other errors it picked up there as well, but we can like record that and we stop that. And once it's finished, I go hit end recording there, and it goes, cool. Here's your little video, so you can always watch it back. And it's using AI to generate a little description of what it thought was wrong. What I really like about this is now I've got a link up the top. I could share this to anyone, like a dev team, or I could share it with the creator, in this case myself. But it's got like, I can see all the consoles, I can see all the network errors, I can see everything. And I can even go into this AI debugging tab, and it can go and tell me what I need to do to fix it, right? So automatically now I've got a way to quickly report a bug as a user, as a developer, a way to quickly see what might be the problem, and also a way to share things with other people. Because sometimes you're like, I don't know, mate, can't replicate that on my end. And you're like, oh, here's a little recording I've just done and sent to you, and it just makes it so much easier. All right, other things that we can get some help on. What about all these things? Stand-ups and sprint reviews and retros and communication. Great thing called ChatGPT. Who's used it yet? Everyone's kind of using ChatGPT? Cool. So we can ask ChatGPT to help us with lots of things. So here's what I'm writing what we call a super prompt here. So I'm being, again, very specific about what I want. I'm telling the AI what my role is in this situation. So I'm a Scrum Master. It's not just Mish, because I'm a lot of things. But I'm telling it in this specific scenario what I am and what I need. I have a meeting coming up. Help me prepare for it. But maybe I don't have lots of time, right? So I just need this in dot points. So I'm being very specific even about the output from the AI that I want. And if we do that, we get quite close to what we actually want. So yeah, here's some dot points in. It's even broken it out so I can quickly see. And it's like, oh yes, thank you. And it's like, would you like some help crafting an agenda? I was like, yes, please. Always remember to say please and thank you to your AIs. Apparently it costs billions of dollars, but it might be worth it. We actually get better responses from AIs. We can even like create visual note taking and things like that. So I just created that one from a YouTube link of my video. But basically what we're doing in all these things is prompt engineering, which is this idea of being very clear about what we want and giving very clear instructions. In the same way we would tell a person. If I'm giving you vague instructions, I'm probably going to get something vague back, right? So we want to be clear. So what does that look like? First of all, don't copy and paste. Vibe coding, sure, go ahead and press those buttons, see what comes out. But if you're doing it for work and for actual production things, don't just copy and paste. Actually think about what you're doing. But also from the point of view that if you are asking an AI, I don't know, create a marketing plan for, a 5-point marketing thing and give me all the social media copy and blah, yada, yada, yada. Everyone else, all your competitors are asking the same thing. So now all of a sudden, that's why, who's been on LinkedIn recently and you're like, another AI generated post. They all look and sound the same, right? It's because everyone is asking the same thing and ChatGPT is all giving them the same similar answers. be very clear and specific. Again, in all the examples I've given you, I've been quite clear and quite specific about what I actually want. Because if we're not clear and we're not specific, we might not get what we actually want. And we're going to spend more time debugging the code or rewriting the prompts that we're given. Next thing, talk like a conversation. And yes, that does actually mean saying please and thank you, and it's not because it's to prevent the robot apocalypse. It's actually because ChatGPT and all those have been trained on the way humans speak and the way humans interact. And it's understood that if I ask you please, or I say thank you, you're probably going to give me something that's a bit more helpful and responsible rather than I'm like, I need it now, give me what you want, I need all your money, right? If we're being nice and polite, it doesn't work. It's not useful for all situations, but most situations. If we're nice and polite, we get better responses from the AIs. Give examples and direction. So kind of like in the Scrum Master one where I was like, I need it in dot points. I need this specific thing that I need to think about. Because if we're not giving good examples and direction, we're going to end up spending more time actually debugging the code than if we were specific at the start. Use correct spelling, grammar, and punctuation. Defiantly and definitely are different words. It's pretty good at picking up typos and things, but sometimes a typo can completely change the meaning of something. And, if we're not being specific and correct in our grammar, then we're going to end up with lots of milk and no avocados, right? And then finally, check. We need to check what the AI is giving us, because if we're not checking what the AI is giving us, we're not being responsible with our AI, but we're also not understanding what is being done and whether we should be using it or not. Because at the end of the day, when you go and commit code, it's your name on the commit message. You are responsible for the code you commit. You are responsible for that project proposal you put in. You are the one who's responsible at the end of the day. You can't just be like, well, GitHub CoPilot did it, so blame them. It's like, well, that doesn't work, right? We need to be responsible people. So if we use AI, we should be able to help with our entire day now as developers, not just in our code and in our editor. All right. Now, if you're sitting there going, okay, well, you've given us a couple of examples. You gave us some ChatGPT and some GitHub CoPilot. These are just some examples of some AIs, and I've got a link to all these as well. But if you're sitting there, there's so many AIs out there, right? And it can be a little bit overwhelming. So if you've got people who say, oh, I'm not sure where to start, get them to start with ones that are already integrated into what you already use. So if somebody is using Microsoft and they're on Office 365, they all have Microsoft CoPilot. And that's quite an easy one to start with. So if you're in a Word document and you're not sure what to do, how to center a paragraph or do something, and what would you usually do in that situation? Most people call over a colleague. Instead of calling over a colleague, ask AI, ask Microsoft CoPilot. That's a good way to get people started and starting to use these things. As developers, if we're looking to build AIs, looking to build different models, have a look at the types of models that are out there. A lot of these are free as well, and we can build some really, really cool things with them. And if you're thinking, oh, look, Mish, you're talking about all this stuff, but there's so many things that I do that an AI can't do. There's a website called There's an AI for that. This was a recording from a little while ago, so the current stat as of 2 days ago when I looked was 36,000 AIs for something like 25,000 different tasks and over 5,000 jobs. So there's an AI out there for so many different things, right? And again, the productivity gains we're seeing are so high. Atlassian's reported about them. We're seeing even Harvard Business School do studies of them. This was a couple of years ago now, so I guarantee this has probably gone up. And we're also seeing the GDP potentially go up as well. But if we do all these things and we work well with AI and we practice all these soft skills that I was talking about, then we have more time to do the things we want as humans. And that's things like collaboration, that's things like, working on code if we're a developer. But I think what we need to understand is at the end of the day, we always need to be continuously learning. Again, you're all here today, which is great, but use the AIs because they're changing every day. Push them to their limits. Understand what they do well and what they don't do well. Because the things that they don't do well, that's what you can do as a human. And I firmly believe that what the best thing we're going to come to is a balance between what the humans can do, our empathy and ethics and oversight and decision making and auditing what the AI is giving us, with the great things that AI can actually do, like all the repetitive work and data-heavy tasks and trawling through information and training sets and things like that, and being able to interpret what we do. So I firmly believe that the real future is this collaborative environment where we're taking the best of both worlds. The best of people and the best of all the tools that we have available to us. Because remember, you're probably not going to lose your job to an AI, but you might lose your job to someone else who is using AI because those productivity gains are so undeniable. So it's nearly time. So I want to leave you all with just a few action points, which is understand that what we're going through is not new. We've experienced it throughout the ages. Yes, it's changing. Acknowledge that the fears that either you or your colleagues or friends or family have, acknowledge that they're valid. Utilize those tools out there, push them to their limits, practice it in ways that use critical thinking. Don't just next time go, oh yes, I like that. Go through, read it, understand what the AI is giving you and is it what you want. And yeah, always be learning. So I think that's really important. So there's those resources that I mentioned. So there's links to articles I've written on like how to use the different GitHub CoPilot modes, agent and models and different things. And also if you'd like to ask questions, there's that resources link still there. I'm around for the rest of the day, or it is a break right now. So if you want to come up and chat to me, I've got some stickers here. While I'm packing up, feel free to. I'm also around for the whole day, or if you're watching this on recording later, feel free to scan this QR code and find me on socials and ask any questions. I want to thank NDC for having me, and I want to thank you all for being here in the first session of a Thursday morning. Thank you, everyone.